I bet you no one was hearing me. Can you hear me, Shirley?
I can hear you now.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been reading your lips. I saw Figured Out this summer,
Ah,
but then when you put your hand over your mouth, I'm like, wait, I'm reading your lips.
all right. So let me start again, and let me start with. We've got some feedback going on. It's
I don't
somewhat
have one
annoying.
phone here, and my Bluetooth is off.
Okay, so let me add Pat to the stage. All right. So we'll start again. So I know TikTok heard me because they're right here on my screen. Um, so as I was saying, I wanted to give a little bit of the stats background. So here's what I say. I met the individual at age 50. I split from the individual at age 53. I was together with the individual for a total of 39 months. I endured, yes, someone is asking, Karen, can you mute while I'm talking?
Um, oh.
I can mute you while I'm talking. You have to unmute you.
Okay, you mute me. It'd be easier if you.
Okay, is that better, Shirley? And I can mute Pat as well. We're having some issues tonight. Better? Worse? Same? Sounds like the optometrist.
Better one, better two.
Yeah, better one, better two, better three, better four. All right, so we're going to try this one more time. Are you ready? Okay. So tonight you are watching Love Over Coffee, Voices Not Heard. This is a platform and a podcast, usually with better sound, for the marginalized, the silenced, and the abused. And tonight I have two guests, Karyn Smith, you've met before, and Pat Jones, and you have met her before. And all three of us are individuals who began or are still in the process of starting over after age 50. I say that because actually, out of the three, I am the youngest with the most gray hair. Go figure that. Um, but I wanted to say, I wanted to give you our stats at the beginning of the hour so you know who we are. We're all narcissistic abuse survivors. Where we've been is abusive relationships, and where we're going is what we're mainly going to talk about tonight because we are all starting over, like I said, after age 50. So I'll say one more time. So for me, I met the individual, I was 50. I left the individual when I was 53. I was with the individual for a total of 39 months. For the first 18 months, the individual lived in another state. For the last 21 months, we actually lived together in the same home. And for after the relationship ended, um, I endured 5 years of legal abuse. And for me, I started figuring things out in the summer of 2017. My gut kept telling me something was off. I started down the rabbit hole of research. I started trying to understand more. Someone posted something in October and used the word narcissism. Someone else used the word domestic violence, and it just all seemed to fall together. Okay. And so those are my stats. And I have been out of the relationship for a total of 6 years in January. Okay. It will be 6 years coming up in January. All right. So now we're going to go to Pat. So I am going to unmute Miss Pat. All right. Pat, give us your statistics. When did you meet the individual? When did you leave the individual? When did you start figuring things out? And I guess I guess post abuse, like how many years has it been since you've left, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you, Tina, for asking that question. I met the individual in high school at the age of 16. That's when my parents said it was okay for me to date. I got the green flag from my parents because they met his parents and they said it was okay for us to date. I got married at age 20. I would say by the time 2 to 3 years of marriage, that's when I found out that he was a cheater. And I just ignored it when they said once a cheater, always a cheater. It is so true in my situation. I did leave. I started getting the red flags. I guess it started waking up around the year 2000. My mom died, and I started noticing how uh, I was being, I would say, neglected or, not treated well. But
I
I
was
can,
going to say often they don't they don't really engage really for anything in your life. So whether it be something happy or something a loss, they're never really present. And so you begin to realize that every occasion in your life is not very important, but if it's an occasion in their life, you should be their number one fan.
exactly, because when my mom passed, when we got to the mortuary, he wanted to walk with my daughter. And I'm like, no, you're my husband. You have to walk with me. And my son and daughter walk. So how would that coming in concern the child and not the, you know, um, the flags were swinging, but I kept saying he's going to get better. And people listen to me. They do not get better. They get
So
worse.
when did you leave the relationship?
I left in 2020. My son moved to Texas in 2017. He became sick, so I was flying back and forth from California to Texas. So I started noticing a great, he retired in 2015, and he started getting agitated and very easily to be upset. And, you know, he go for his walk or wherever, and he come back and he's angry. And I'm like, hey, buddy, step outside, knock off that whatever you got on you, and when you come back, don't come back in here with the same mess. And so 2019, I came down with a shoulder ache, and I he was cooking for me, and that's when he had the opportunity to start drugging me because I was in pain, and he's like, here, take this will help your pain. And my children were calling me, and all I could say is, yeah, I'm okay, and I would go back to sleep. So one day in January, I decided to get up and start cooking. He was furious. He came home and found me cooking. Why are you in here cooking? I said, because I want to taste my own cooking, you know. And he followed me around in that kitchen. Hindsight was, whatever he was giving me, he didn't want me to open up the cabinets and find it.
Talk about arsenic and old lace. Goodness gracious, you were living it, girl.
Yeah. So February 1st, I went out and I came back a few hours. He wasn't at home. And when I came back, he was eating, and I took my bath, and I said, well, I've missed a whole month of church. Let me go to sleep early. Now, mind you, this is like 6:30 in the evening. I said, there's no, not going to, I made sure I had my clothes laid out. There's no excuse why I don't go to church tomorrow, which would be February 2nd. Well, he came in and he said, well, you haven't been taking your medicine. And I said, oh, yes, I have. And I'm in the bed, he's standing over me. And I didn't like that feeling. So I got up and I went to the kitchen and I pulled out my medicine tray. And I said, see here, I've taken my medicine, because I was only taking 2 pills, and that was in the morning for my blood pressure. He insisted, whatever this white pill was, that I take it. And I got really strong, and I told him, you know what? Take your and sit down where you were when I came. Leave me alone. You know, because I'm not one to use curse words, you know.
I
And
am.
by the time I got to the back room, something said, get your medicine. I grabbed my medicine. I went to the back. It was like he was a demon. He had turned into a demon. It was like, meow. He was right there. It was impossible for him to get from the living room to the bedroom like that. And I'm like, whoa, you really better get out of here now, because something's going on. Don't you go to sleep in here. And I opened up the closet, got the biggest suitcase I could, and I just emptied my bras and panties and nightgowns into my suitcase and grabbed some stuff that later on I found out did not match. My daughter, she said, Mama, you don't have nothing that makes it.
At that point, it don't matter. So when you count from 16 until you left, how many years were you actually? So you married at 20. So you met him 16 to 20. That's 4 years. How long were you married?
I left at 46. He's still dragging the divorce out.
Okay.
And right now it's 50, but I'm not counting. I at 46.
So you are in what is called a high conflict divorce, because he's being a pain in the wazoo
Yes.
in order to get it. Okay. Okay.
Yes. So the property is settled, and it's insane. It's
Okay.
it's unreal.
Right.
I thank God every day that I get up that I'm in my right mind and that I got out when I did. Because see, I left February 1st. I got to Texas on February 18th because I was hospitalized.
Mm-hmm. Well, save that. Save that. Save that. Okay. Save that right there. Okay, I'm going to mute you for a moment.
Okay.
I'm going to unmute Karyn.
The second, it was just especially noisy outside today. So I'm inside right now.
Okay.
Just
So,
moving my chair out of the way here, and I'll be right with you.
okay. Well, we will
Okay.
wait for you.
All right, I'm here.
Okay. So, can you just give us a bit of your statistics?
Okay, I met him, and this is ironic, at 31 years and 51 weeks, 7 days before my 32nd birthday. Of course, he was a knight in shining armor for the first couple of years. I had the money that has a direct influence. Somatic, fragile, covert narcissist is what I came to once I got the education many, many years later. But at the time, it was just Mr. Wonderful. Then, post traumatic stress, childhood abuse. I used to hear that story all the time. And years later, it comes out that there had been a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. Now, had I known that in the beginning, the relationship would not transact.
She turned the camera too much and we lost her. Um, so I know when I left the relationship, I was not physically harmed at the time as far as any physical um, component of the relationship. I had not endured any sexual component of the relationship. The aftermath for me was confusion, cognitive dissonance, trying to understand every freaking thing I could think of and find about narcissistic abuse because my need to know was greater than my need to heal.
This is
Are
the
you
day of most technical difficulties ever. The devil is a liar. I know you don't want to see
alive?
that.
Let
So,
let me mute.
um, we're at, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, where I was under the influence, trauma bonded, love bombed by Mr. Knight in Shining Armor. But over the years, the chinks in the armor came off, the mask started slipping and dropping. And of course, as everyone knows, those time periods get longer and longer. And when you're ready to go, here comes the love bomb and the honeymoon. Left
So,
7 times.
Karen, how old were you when you met the individual?
1 week shy of 32 years old. He was 38.
Okay. And you were with him 1 week shy of 32 or
2
33
years.
years.
For
Okay.
33 years, I put him out, escaped, if you will,
Mhm.
1 week shy of my 65th birthday.
Wow.
I warned him in my 50s, I'm not going to be Mrs. James Brown. I'm not going to be a senior citizen with Popo arriving because you drunk and disorderly screaming. And then when the police arrive, Oh, officer, the
Oh,
problem is
yes.
black woman.
Yeah.
You know how they are. We
Calm, cool, collected individual when the police arrive.
Mr. Jones.
Okay, so um, so when I talk, for some reason, Karen, you and I, our microphones are in are in conflict with each other. So when I speak, your camera or your microphone is making lots of noises. I'm not sure what the issue is, but so I'll mute you when I'm talking. Okay. Um. So all of us started getting wise around the time of the pandemic, to be honest. Even though I had already been out of my relationship for a couple of years, I was still figuring things out. And then, of course, the biggest piece. So let's talk about for each of us. Um, for me, there was no physical or no sexual abuse, but there was mental in my own relationship, mental, emotional, financial, social, intellectual, and verbal. And for 5 years beyond the relationship, there was legal abuse and abuse by proxy. And there was also legal abuse through the police department. So I not only endured the court aspect of it all, but the police aspect of it all. So during the course of your relationships, what were the predominant forms of abuse? So, Karen, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, and I've been the person that's been moving and jiggling around, so that's what the conflicting mics are. I'll be still so it doesn't happen anymore. But for me, when the mask fell in the beginning couple of years, there was at first 2 incidents of physical abuse, and I mean serious, broken ribs and both eyes battered, detached retina. But I was in that commitment phase and thought, well, I can't get divorced. I can't do this, and forgive. And of course, that was played. But the second time after the eyes, I realized, oh, this person thinks they're going to continue to get drunk and lay hands upon me. Well, I corrected that immediately by reversing the fortune and handing back better than I was getting. So the physical stopped, but the mental, the emotional, the financial, the verbal, and I didn't know it at the time, but the playing around was going on. So that was, say, from 91, 92 is when things got really intense in that area. Um, all the way up until, say, 2010. I'm at the level, I know nothing about narcissism, but I'm trauma bonded. I've been to 6 shelters. In fact, I was in a shelter when President Obama came to Hawaii. That was my 7th shelter or 6th shelter, I believe. And I didn't know about that. But I like Medea says, I closed a little treasure shop, at least I say it anyway. So there was no more physical contact between us, but I'm still providing supply, money, services, cooking, laundry, keeping everything together on that level. By 2017, we've gone from 1987, where if someone called me the N word, he lost his mind, to by 2017, he's now calling me the N word. And I'm like, okay, you just must be a special paranoid schizophrenic. This must be some degradation of PTSD. You lost your mind. By 2018, I knew I was on my way out the door. He caused the second eviction from a very wealthy living location. I went camping because that was my idea of 5-star. 2018 to 2019, moved into a couple of shelters, wound up in a transitional shelter in 2019. By December, and that was April, December of 2019, I'm so worn down with the mental and the verbal and the rages that I now have brain fog, brain damage. I live in cognitive dissonance. I'm listening to hours of screaming. Police are coming constantly to the house because he's yelling. Occasionally, he got me into reactive abuse, but then I fell silent. Then I was ready because the memory was gone. I couldn't remember my name a couple of times. I was institutionalizing myself when he did something, deliberately brought me a Mountain Dew that was diet, projected, and that snapped me into the aha moment. Next day, in the videos, my YouTube, which I knew nothing about Google or any of that, narcissism videos showed up. January, I had a storage place. I'm getting ready to fly back to California, planning to leave March 1st. COVID happened. Now I'm on lockdown. The airport shut at both ends. So I figured, okay, God, you obviously want me to learn something. So 16, 18, 20 plus hours a day listening to videos. By May, I've got a real good handle on just what kind of multiple cluster B dysfunctions that he is. And I'm sorry, you're supposed to be a doctor, but when somebody is all 9 traits and 4 of this and 3 of sociopath and psychopath, look at my title. It's Cluster B Free. That's how I'm living. From 2018 on, I started putting God first instead of committing idolatry. When I started venting into the phone in August, I put him out August 14th, 2020, which I figured out later that was the exact 33rd anniversary of the day we met 33 years later. And land this plane, vented into a phone. Okay, I'll come up with a YouTube name. I said, oh, see, that's how I got in trouble with this guy. I didn't talk to God first. I'm like, God, what's the title of my YouTube? And I wasn't intending on promoting it or getting serious about it like I am now. It was just a vent because I didn't have anyone to talk to professionally. And he gave me Cluster B Free. Now I have over 500 videos and I'm pressing in to get serious. And I'll land this plane. Did we lose her? Well, to continue till I hear her voice, I got rid of him at 64 years, 1 week shy of my 65th birthday. Yes, ma'am.
We can't hear you, Tina.
Someone type that we can't.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Now, like the All right, I'm going to mute you, Karyn. All right, so I'm going to share with you Karyn's YouTube.
Aloha. Welcome to Cluster B Free Karyn. This is October, Domestic Violence Month. Understand that domestic violence is not just hitting, it's coercive control. Look that up. It's silent treatment, passive aggressive behavior, financial abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, calling you names, demanding if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. That's coercive. You need to wear this. Where are you going? If that person is no good, you shouldn't be their friend. These are things that are abusive to your nature. Contact the domestic violence hotline, the national one, 1-800-799-SAFE, Sam, Adam, Frank, Edward. Get yourself free from an abusive relationship. Aloha.
So, as I said, and as Karyn told you, her page is called Cluster B Free Karyn Smith, and it has over 500 videos in regard to abuse. And it is phenomenal what she has on that page. And it is quite a resource of information, in particular, narcissistic abuse, because all three of the women you are seeing on the screen have been victims and survivors now of narcissistic abuse. And it is a category of abuse that is far beyond what is normally thought of in terms of domestic violence, and that is the physical aspect. So I want to ask another question. So when I left the relationship, as I said earlier, I was so confused. I was immensely sad, but I felt like a fighter and a half. And I was still in the phase of trying to understand every small detail of narcissism, because I'm a teacher and I went down the rabbit hole of research and I wanted to know and learn everything, because I thought that if I understood everything, then everything would make sense. And that if everything made sense, maybe I could still figure out what I was doing wrong and why we weren't together anymore, and that maybe it was still my fault. So I had 2 master's degree in the relationship. But after I went down the rabbit hole, I feel like I dated a guy, broke up with a guy, and somewhere along the way earned a PhD in narcissistic abuse, because I was trying to drink it all in. I was eating it and drinking it 24/7. And I just didn't realize that at some point, whether he's narcissistic, toxic, or just an asshole, I knew that I had to stop with the understanding of and just try to heal. So I shifted from trying to understand the BS to moving away from the BS to figuring out my own healing. And now I'm going to land that plane, and I'm going to let the two of you talk about that. So, Pat, we'll start with you.
Okay, my situation was a little different because, of my spiritual. Ask God to please get me out this situation. And when the opportunity presented itself and I got out, it was no looking back, because I had not did it abruptly. It was almost planned, but my mindset was like, hey, the physical part, was never physical or sexual. Definitely not. I used to say I'm the only married virgin.
Good point, Rainey. Good. Rainey says, I feel like once we begin asking ourselves if they are, they indeed are.
Yes.
It is a true statement. Once you begin asking yourself what's going on, then you know something's going on.
Exactly. So I was glad to get out that situation. So as I stated earlier, my son came and got me and brought me here. He was on a mission. He went out daily looking for resources for me. And finally, I got here in February. Thank God I got out when I did, because the pandemic hit the next month. Everything was indeed done in divine order. I got here on the 18th. My son started bugging me, Mom, go take your we got to get your picture taken. I went the day before DMV closed down for the pandemic. So the picture that I have on my license is someone that's not, it does not look like me at all. Because when I give people my picture, they kind of look at the picture and then they look up at me and they look at the picture. And I know what it was. It was the trauma that came out, because Karyn and I have talked about this a lot. She doesn't look the same from now from the time I met her in 2021. We all are like, we're like butterflies, you know. That's the best way I can describe it. We survived, and I'm definitely flying, you know.
I happen to think I'm kind of cute now.
Yes, I feel good. I feel better than I ever felt in my life, except for the time I had my 2 babies. That's where I'm at now.
Okay.
Some people say, "Oh, when I got married, I was happy," but in the back of my mind, before I got married, something was saying, you know. So I had a lot of red flags, but
okay. All right, stop right there. Okay, I'm going to mute myself. I just have to remember to unmute myself when I start to talk again. So I'm going to mute myself.
Aloha. I wasn't given a question, Tina. What was the question?
The question was, when you first left the relationship, what did you endure, and what were, I think that's mainly it. What kinds of abuse, and how did you start to figure it out, I guess?
Well, when I left the relationship, or escaped, barricaded the door, wouldn't let him back in, I had already, from January to by May 2020, I already had my master's degree. And from May to August, I worked on my PhD. May was a big changing point for me, because I had enough knowledge that now I'm no longer falling for reactive abuse. I know the monster that I have. I know the coward that I have. And let me rephrase this and say this again. Don't try this at home. I knew the coward that I had. I had fought this man badly. I drew the line decades earlier. Like, he was a sucker puncher. That's how I got hurt those 2 times. We're less than a foot apart, arguing, which is not something I'm used to doing in a relationship. This is all new. Of course, he said that was all my fault. He'd never done that before in his life. Later on, when I found pictures of all of his previous girlfriends who all had black eyes, but he never did this before. Okay. So I drew the line. When he would start getting fired up, I was like, don't step toward me. Because if you step, I'm stepping to you. I'll meet you halfway and we'll see who goes to the hospital. And I wasn't always unarmed either. So what happened? I've got a master's by a PhD by August, but I'm in cognitive dissonance. The brain fog has cleared up enough because I've drawn lines. You will stop making noise at 10 o'clock. Now it's, you will not rage at me, because starting May 25th, I started calling Popo. So no, none of this keeping it quiet and neighbors calling. I'll call for them. So I drew lines, insisted on some peace and quiet. Oh, and by the way, when you leave to go somewhere, I don't care, don't want to hear it, don't want to hear it when you got back. I don't want to hear all your, this person did this, that person did this, this pisses me off. Duh, duh, duh. And by the way, did you see how I went into that head going? That was one of the things. Oh, you stop moving your neck like that. You know, you're not from the ghetto. Your parents are teachers. Don't you do this. Well, like an idiot, I stopped. Guess who started working the finger? And but he looked like he was spastic. It's like people even commented later, like, when did he think he was a black woman? He just couldn't do it good, but he had shoulder length hair, so he thought he could. So what was it like? I was in cognitive dissonance. Brain fog had lifted. Now I knew my name. The brain damage was there. I needed to heal. And I'm going to say this not just because I'm a life coach and a YouTuber. I'm not trying to get you to pay me, although I'm not going to say no. People, especially those who've been over 50 and 60 years old, you have been through a purgatory that you are only beginning to understand. You do not have to do it forever, but please go get a life coach to help you navigate what's going on. You can do it at first without one, but check in like Miss Tina did. Check in now and then. Aunt Pat, we check in. Now, me and her, we got a sisterhood going on, and so do Tina and I too. So Tina, we need to talk more. But I have a coach, and she's still my coach. No, I don't have to talk to her weekly like I did at first in September. But we check in. I check in. If there's a crisis, if something is unsure, I will pick up the phone. And like a lot of life coaches, which I've discovered I do myself sometimes, I'll pick up the phone and call my person going, how you doing? You on my mind. Well, Helen Sadler, your destiny helper, is my coach. And she will pick up that phone. Princess, how you doing? Even though I'm older. But she makes me feel like a princess, and I like that part, okay? Because I feel younger, I feel better. This is what I'm going to say and land in this plane, ladies and gentlemen. And let's not forget, men are abused too. I am a fierce advocate for men. These female covert narcissists and malignant narcissists and borderline and other cluster Bs, they're taking men out, not to mention the mental, the verbal, the emotional, the financial. Men are having heart attacks and strokes because of these women. So it's, ladies and gentlemen that are listening, it's not just us women that are being abused, it is men too. So get yourself a coach, and generally you need some therapy time too, because a lot of this has got some childhood components to it. That's what happened to me. I drew the line, barricaded that door, and said no more. That was 2020 August. By guess maybe May or so of 2021, I'm laughing in my apartment crazily, not like I'm insane, just happy. And it dawned on me, you've got peace, you've got joy. No one's yelling at you. And you know what else? Money in my pocket for a change, something I've forgotten. So life without a financial abuser. First couple of months, I think it was, when I moved here, I started to go to the bank because payday came the first and the third, and it was the fourth. I looked in my wallet and there was $250. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even have to rush to the bank right now. That's what happens when you get a financial abuser out of your life. And let me land this plane.
Okay, so I want each of us to tell probably the funniest story when you look back, okay, I got two. Okay. One of them, okay, so the first funny story for me was the abuser and I were not sexually intimate over the course of 39 months. He engaged in a lot of future faking. So he loved who we were. He loved, where we were going. Again, this podcast did not come from left field. So he loved who I was. He loved who we were. He loved where we were going. And the first thing he did after I had the EPO granted, he went and filed sexual abuse charges against me. So that was the first, like if you want to prove who you are, where you've been and where you're going, go file sexual abuse charges against someone you've never slept with. It's like, okay, that makes perfect sense. That was the moment when it was like, okay, I now know who you are because you're crazy. The second thing was I had stopped doing laundry for him because he was always bitching, moaning, groaning, whining, complaining about something in regard to something. So I started shutting down, like, I'm not going to basically cook. I'm not going to do the dishes. I'm not going to do your laundry anymore. You don't like the detergent I'm buying? So, okay, go buy your own. So one morning he comes upstairs and he says, and of course, we didn't share the bedroom. Okay. So he comes upstairs and he's just huffing and puffing and having himself a cow. And of course, he wants me to ask what's wrong. So I said, without missing a beat, I said, it's really cold this morning. He said, yes, it is. And I said, is there a problem? And he said, well, it's especially cold when I don't have any clothes to wear. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, you don't like the detergent that I'm buying. I thought you were going to buy your own. Now, by this time, I had already cut him off financially. So buying detergent, I guess, was an issue. And so all of a sudden he says, that's okay. I've taken care of it. And I'm like, okay. And so about 30 minutes later, some girl shows up in our driveway and she's got a Sonic bag and detergent. And she comes in the bottom door off his bedroom. Funny how she knew quite right where to go, right? And so she goes to his bedroom, and now he goes downstairs and he closes the door. And in true Tina fashion, by this time, the OCD checker, I went upstairs and I'm looking out the window to see who the chick is, because I know it ain't no guy. And sure enough, it's some chick. She worked at the mobile store because the chick started paying his phone bill. Okay? Because I stopped paying the bill. So lo and behold, after she's only there about 5 minutes, okay, long enough probably for him to give her a hug. He takes the Sonic breakfast, he takes the detergent, and he comes upstairs and he says, here you go. And I said, wow. I said, what is this from? And he said, well, some work I did for the Boost Mobile place. They brought me some Sonic and some laundry detergent. And I said, without missing a beat, because my wit by this time, I said to him, I said, wow, man, I need to change phone companies. And then he just went downstairs without a word to say. And I had to laugh because by this time I knew the game. The gig was up. And I would ask questions I already knew the answer to just to watch him squirm. Because I am telling you, The lies got better and better, and my giggling got louder and louder on the inside until I can giggle now on this podcast and say, I don't know what you were thinking, but when I remembered how smart I was, I knew how stupid he was. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Okay, so the most funny part was 2020 when I left. I'm rolling my suitcase down hall, get to the living room. He gets up. I said, these two fingers, stop. Sit your, I said, yo, and don't you come on this porch. Let me go. And he sat right back down. I got on the porch and I realized, darn it, I left the keys to my car. So I comes back in with, I left the suitcase on. And I walk in and I say, sit down. Don't you get up. And I went and got my keys off of the counter and I walked out and I just drove off. My daughter said, where we going? I said, follow me. Yes, that was the funniest.
Okay, I'm fighting between three, so I think I may just have to tell two stories. One just might get you kicked off of YouTube, so I'll clean it up as much as I can. The first one, as I mentioned earlier, I had shut down the treasure chest in 2010. We've been kicked out of our first multi-million dollar living situation with a multi-million dollar uh, retiree, 84 years old, used to work for IBM, University of Hawaii. We've got a view of the ocean, that last scene of Battleship, the movie, when they scrape the edge and they're getting ready to fight that very last alien ship. I looked at that at a height of 400 feet, that whole panoramic view every day out of my kitchen window doing dishes, the rich man's dishes, and out of the living room window when we sat down to eat. So that was my view. And he got us kicked out of there with the police being called repeatedly. Now, the funny story. Treasure Shop is shut down in 2010. We're now in Chinatown, in one of those places where we moved so fast because we were living in a car that I accepted bathrooms down the hall. Why? Because he offended a bunch of people at the beach and they were harassing us again because of him. Everywhere we go, he creates a problem. So I took this place, never looked at the bathroom. They said men were on one floor, two floors, and women were on another floor. Turns out it was co-ed bathrooms to begin with. Come out the shower and there's a man standing there in a towel. There you are in a towel. But next thing is, you see my skin color? I'm light-skinned in comparison to the blackness. See this hat? That's the color of the inside of the toilet. So I get one of those porta potties from my doctor. Now, what's funny? This is now 2015. Finally, one day he says to me, I have to go to the doctor. And he pulls the covers down, and I see where there should be nothing but hair, the biggest giant patch of the constantly recurring for the rest of your life STD. And of course, the twig and berries are lightly covered, but the area with the hair is just trimmed, okay? And he says to me, this is the punchline, and he's gifted. He stood in line twice. I'll give him that. When God was passing it out, he stood in line twice. He had to hold it normally, the twig and berries, when he sat down. Now, why he would even be in that bathroom, but he tells me the reason why he has this horrible case is because his twig and berries fell in that black toilet not once, but twice. Now, since it was so bad in the area that was trimming it, why wasn't what fell into the toilet covered with it? That's one story. And that, tell you what you're doing, that's exactly what I was doing. And yes, I even changed colors. Black people can blush just like you are. I was laughing so hard. That's one story, and I'll tell the other one only a lot faster. One day, he's railing at me, saying that you're the reason that I drink. Now, he's forgotten that when I met him 33 years earlier, he had told me he was 4 or 5 months sober from drinking 3/5 of Corbel brandy a day. A lie, because that would have put him into an alcoholic coma. But he lost his world of women, and that's what he did every day. He seemed so addicted that he had to take Valium on the streets. Nobody would give him any in the hospital. Gee, I wonder why. Um, to straighten up. So here it is now, 2020, and he's saying, yes, and it's, now we've been going to church and everything. It's your fault, the reason I drink. I'm like, so one day, Judgment Day is going to come, and you're going to stand in front of Jesus, in spite of the fact that you have fallen down the stairs so drunk that when the hospital, the doctor says, if I had an alcohol level of 3 point something, I'd be unconscious. They had to detox him. You told me you drank too much before I met you. And now you want me to believe. And his story was, and this is the punchline, he was going to tell Jesus that the reason he drank too much was it was all my fault. And I'm like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. So you want me to sit here and believe that Jesus is going to believe you when you blame me for your drinking? Y'all, with a perfectly straight face and a look with the expression of a 4-year-old, he stuck his entitled nose up in the air and said, mm-hmm. Yeah, this is that delusional part they talk about on YouTube. And I'll land my plane. I'll save the third one for when we come back with Will and Phil.
For those of you who are on TikTok, I'm sure you can probably hear me giggling and breathing tonight because Lord have, I'm telling you what. But you have to be far enough out. So if you are not this far out or you cannot find some comical stories, give yourself grace and give yourself time. Because I tell you what, sometimes when you look back, as I have said before, you can't make this shit up. They crazy. They crazy. Crazy. Like big crazy. Okay. I always say I'm crazy fun, but I ain't crazy mental. They crazy. And they think that they are really, really smart and can get one over on you. And I tell you what, when you remember how smart you are, they look even dumb. They look even dumber. Okay, so as we recover from that, the twig and berries, you know, there's a band here in Lexington called the Twig and Berries. I'm never gonna be able to watch them again without thinking about this story. They play Beatles music, the Twig and Berries. Oh my god. Anyway, so last question. When I was in the relationship, you can never do enough right, and everything you do is wrong. So now I get to choose what I do right and what I do wrong without anybody saying a damn thing. So now, if I want to do the dishes, I do them. And if I don't want to do them, I don't do them. And if they're not perfect, they're not perfect. But Lord have mercy, between dishes and noise and just trash, anything in the house, all you have to do is change the word, and it's the same game. You can either do the dishes quickly or not do them fast enough, or you can do them fast and they're not clean enough, they're not dry enough, they were put up wet, they weren't put up dry. I mean, it's like it's I call it the flip of the flop. I mean, really, by the time you leave the relationship, you don't know that up is down and down is up, and you're just completely confused. Nothing makes any sense, and everything is confusing. But now, when I look back, I realize that the most enjoyable aspect of my life after 50 and after narcissistic abuse is my peace. PEACE. The joy I find in the quiet, in the cup of coffee, in the watching what I want to on television, eating what I want to. When I was with the individual, I would eat a lot late at night so he wouldn't know what I was eating. I would buy cookies for him that only he liked. But if I ate one cookie, it was missing, and I heard about it for 6 weeks. But if he went to the grocery store, he bought everything he wanted and nothing that I wanted. And it was like, I drink coffee. I like, sweet and low. I like vanilla creamer. But you went and bought everything opposite. Or not at all. Okay. This is how he would play with the woman who lived in our home with us, is that when he was mad at me, he would say he wanted tea. And when he was mad at her, he would say he wanted coffee. And when I would do something he liked, then he would make sure he would throw it up to her. And if she did something he liked, then he would throw it up to me. They would go to the grocery store together. I'm sure it was their nice time together without Tina watching. And when they went to the store and they would buy everything that they wanted and come back, and then I would say, well, did you get the like anything for me? And it would be no. So then I would go to the grocery store to get the and I would come back and find out that she was crying because I had upset her. No, she wasn't crying. She didn't have any opinion about it at all. But this is how he would play both of us. So now I ain't got to worry about any of that crap, because it is crap, and it will wear you down and wear you out. Until you you get to the point where you're like, I must be crazy for staying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you make the break. And so even though I cut him off financially, and I called the police that day, and he immediately put on the calm, cool, collected face, I knew at that moment that was my moment of escape. So, that is what they do. And the peace I have found since the relationship is God given, God sent, and God grateful. And a blessing that I wouldn't change for all the coffee in the world. You heard it here first. So I'm going to land my plane and let Pat talk. Go ahead, Miss Pat.
I enjoy the peace. I enjoy having my own bedroom and my own bed. Like you, I get up when I want to. I lay down when I want to. And by the way, when you have been in an abusive relationship, you are sleep deprived. You know, you are so. I do take my naps all the time. I didn't get one today, but I make sure I get one at least once a week, and I do my self care. I make sure I take a day out and I go to Ross and I buy these facials, and I take care of myself. I had a lady that was, I think she's a friend of my son. She said she was 50 and she's looking at my face like, I don't see any wrinkles. And she had me rolling. It's like maybe because I take a nap.
Listen, I figure I lost about 200 pounds when I lost his ass.
Oh, absolutely.
Say it.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Miss Pat. And I mean 200 pounds when he walked out the door. That was the 200 pounds I lost. Okay. I'm going to mute myself.
In the middle of the bed. Also, he kept recreating his childhood and his in the army days when they finally locked him up in the nut house and then put him in the guardhouse. Even when we had 1 and 2 bedroom places, he would drag the mattress into the living room so we're in one room. Other than that, we were always in studio apartments because they have to keep an eye on you at all times. They follow you to the bathroom, they follow you all around the house. I'm in a 1 bedroom apartment that is large enough that if I have my Bluetooth on and leave the phone in the bedroom, by the time I get to the living room, it's completely broken. I'm in the matrix and you can't understand anything I'm saying. The lack of mockery, the eating what you want. Now, towards the end there, I would do things. I don't know if it was Pat that said it, but I would sit down and I'd fry 1 piece of chicken, make 2 biscuits, make just enough vegetables for myself, a salad for one, and I would go sit on the split king size mattress and box spring that I'd taken the frame out so I could separate them and have space between us. And I'd do what he did. I would come sit on the side of the bed with my back to him and eat my because I cook good. Yes, indeed. And like you, I lost about 250 pounds when I got rid of him. And y'all look at the tapes from last year and you look at this year, I've lost about 60 pounds getting back into eating healthy, hydrating, fruits and vegetables. So life without him is cluster B free. And I land that plane.
Yes.
Before we say goodnight, and I hope that you have enjoyed our giggles because life after 50 looks completely different.
Yes.
And it certainly looks completely different when you are narcissistic free. And as Karyn says, cluster B free. I just want to say again, you've been listening to Love Over Coffee, Voices Now Heard. This is a platform and a podcast for the marginalized, the silenced, and the abused. And I think that probably we could all agree. I'm just going to do a shameless plug again. This month's subscription box is about healing the inner child. And so, one of the things that you learn after a narcissistically abusive relationship is you learn how to set boundaries, but you also have to give yourself permission. And so in this box, there are some activities, visualization, journaling prompts, things to help you think about the inner child and pulling the inner child forward because she learned coping skills that helped you to survive. But she also lost her innocence, perhaps, as a young child, or maybe as a teenager, or through other forms of trauma. So here's a little school bus to represent, because we all loved lunch, recess, and going on a field trip. So here's the little permission slips, and it says, I give myself permission to set limits and say no. I give myself permission to stop and take a break. I give myself permission to listen to what I need. I give myself permission to not be perfect.
We lost you, Tina. We lost the volume.
Am I back?
Yes.
I accidentally had the little microphone on. So these are the little permissions in the little school bus, and they will be in this month's subscription box. If the box is something you are interested in, please let me know. There are 2 or 3 boxes left. They are 30 cups of coffee. That's that word I'm not supposed to say on TikTok. That D word. And we ain't talking about the D word that we've been talking about with the twiggenberries. We're talking about the D word for currency. We ain't allowed to say that word on TikTok. So the box is about 30 cups of coffee. That's that D word. And if you're interested, the link is in my bio. And the November-December box will be going out by January 1st if I have to deliver it in the dark of night. And so this box is a little bit late because we had to get some boxes for the boxes, and my supplier had stopped with making the box that I was using. So I say all that to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you to my great friends and sisters from another mister, and from another mother, and others from another mother, and all that good stuff. And they're my prayer warriors. They're all kinds of things. I don't know where I would be without these two. Patricia Jones, Karyn Smith, and my name is Tina Durbin, and you have been listening to and watching Love Over Coffee, Voices Now Heard for the Marginalized, the Silenced, and the Abused. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end TikTok. Let me see if there are any questions over here. Someone says, yes, narcissists believe Jesus would even believe them. Is that the truth? Someone says he was messy messing. He was messy messing. I like that. There's lots of silly giggling faces on here. I have a feeling it was during the Twiggenberry story. We achieved our goal tonight, and we're up to about 5.2 likes, 5.2 thousand likes. So, I hope the awareness is getting out there, along with a few laughs. So let me give you each a chance to say your final words, and then I'll say goodnight. I'm going to mute myself. Karyn, you go first.
Thank you. Aloha from Hawaii. Remember to love yourself. And for the believers out there, the reason I'm smiling and got one of my cowboy hats on is I'm discovering myself. He used to ridicule me for my cowboy hat. So howdy, ma'am. Howdy, partner. Yee! So enjoy yourself. Do those things after 50 that you couldn't do around the narcissist. Do them now, including as Aunt Pat makes sure I get my mani pedi and take care of myself. Self care. Love yourself, and guess what? The joy and the laughter that you see the three of us doing will come. There was bitter tears and cognitive dissonance and brain damage and brain fog in the beginning, but we're laughing now. Get yourself a coach, get yourself some therapy, and you will be laughing too. A hui ho from Hawaii. Ne. Love you two sisters from other misters. Aloha. Bye, Rashid. Bye, Will. Bye, Shirley.
Say that the domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 800-799-7233. We were joking around, but this is a very serious matter. You can contact them. They have 24/7 advocates available, and they can speak with you. They have funds that they can help you if you're in a situation that you need to leave. God does not want us to stay like the church told me, sister, you gotta pray, stay and pray, and you can save the unbelieving husband. Well, it was wrong. He was a believer. He went to church every Sunday night, and carried his Bible, but he still did what the Bible said not to do, and that was to abuse me. So love yourself enough to speak with an advocate, contact your local domestic violence shelter. When I left, I took 2 different courses to help me understand what was really going on, because I didn't realize I was abused. I just thought it was selfishness, but it wasn't. Thank you, Tina, for allowing us to share our story.
You are most welcome. Um, so we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you then. Thanks everybody for coming, and thank you to all that are on the Real Change and all on the Real Change group and all that good stuff. So I apologize for the sound and the other issues. I know that Karyn and Pat will be back when we speak with Will, which is Karyn's son, and Phil, who is a protective services security guy, and so is Will, self defense, and they'll be back on that night. So we're going to work on this whole sound thing, because I don't really know where the problem is, but I think we've narrowed it down. It's somewhere between me and Karyn. So we'll figure that out before we meet again. We'll get on and practice until the sound is a little better. But I thank you for hanging out. Thank you again for the likes and the loves and the gifts and the shares. And I will see you tomorrow night, 9 p.m.
Bye, Rasheed. Bye, Kathy.
All right. So I said goodbye on TikTok. All right. So
Aloha.
it's something to do with your microphone here. Meet and greet and figure it out before we begin. So Kathy is saying bye, mommy. Thank you, Carol, for all that you did. I'll go ahead and end the live stream. You guys stay right there.
Bye, Carol.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Bye, Shirley.
Bye, Shirley.